What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Best of 2022. My name is Pachinko, joined by my trusty co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how was the year in TV in 2022?
Pretty good. I think we hit the peak of peak TV this year, specifically spring 2022, when there was too many notable television productions out at one time. It was just impossible to watch everything, and things fell through the cracks and got ignored and didn't get the time they deserved. And I think now, with the economic climate changing and the business of streaming switching priorities a little bit, I think we're going to see a lesser volume of scripted television series in the short term, and maybe how long it takes that to manifest. Maybe it's not for another 2 years. I don't know, but I think it'll be noticeable. I feel like this was kind of like the last gasp of the uh, era we just had.
So it's all downhill from here, is what you're saying.
Perhaps, you never know. No, feeling
Yeah,
good. It was a good year. A lot of good stuff for sure. Really strong TV year. I definitely love my top 10. I really like my 10 through 20 as well. We watched a lot of good stuff.
yeah, and it's funny because if you look at a lot of year-end lists, there's so many shows that we just didn't even have the chance to get to. Things like Reservation Dogs or Abbott Elementary come to mind as things that are seem to be
Severance.
universally critically loved, and we just have not been able to get to based on all the other things that we get to. So if you want to view all those things we get to, though, hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. um yeah, when you think about the year in TV, as you said, back in the spring felt like the peak of peak TV in a way. What do you think will be the thing that you remember most from this year in television?
Huh, I think in the beginning of the year, I probably would have said the drama series based off a real life figure slash criminal slash grifter. That we had so many of them
Mm.
at one time, right? You had the Dropout about Elizabeth Holmes, and We Crashed about WeWork, and Inventing Anna, and The Staircase, which was more true crimey, and uh, the the Uber one as well on Showtime with Kyle Chandler. Like there were so many of those shows all at one time, and it felt like that was like this huge bubble. But then I don't know, probably like this was a huge year of blockbuster TV, right?
Mm.
Stranger Things return after several years, Andor, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power. Just a lot of big heavy hitters, a lot of hyped up stuff, big ratings hits like Euphoria as well. Like I feel like we just had a lot of top line big names this year too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me, my most anticipated shows of the year were definitely the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and the House of Dragons, Game of Thrones prequel that were kind of going head to head and dropping, just a few weeks apart from each other. And we had these two like epic stories with amazing production value and CGI coming into it. And in looking at my list and what I ended up having near the top, nothing really beats just good writing. If it seems, like as I'm looking through, it's like the more that it felt like the writers had an idea, a message that was clear and concise, and then obviously a lot of this is also paired up with just top notch filmmaking, which is just now become par for the course in peak TV. It's like, yeah, stories are always going to be the heart of these things. It feels like, even though it's a visual medium, the story is a lot of times what I find myself enjoying most. And I'm excited to talk about the shows that we have up here. Um, in 2022, as we're thinking about like what the year meant in television, did you have anything that stood out as like a biggest surprise, good or bad, for you?
Huh. I don't know. I think recently, big surprise was everything that's happened like economically with HBO
Mm.
Max, Warner Brothers Discovery specifically, but also slightly elsewhere, where like we're seeing series get removed from their
Yes.
services. Not just the show canceled or not continued, but the series itself no longer available, and you're seeing the uglier side of the new normal, which is the back end for actors and producers has been switched to now just like a general payment when stuff is on the service, to speak super broadly. And now, in certain situations, like you're seeing with Warner right now with this fiscal year, they'd rather save the money and delete something from their main offering and offer it some other way. And that's even applying to something super big like Westworld, right? So that's not going to always be the case, if you get into like the economic like nitty gritty of how these things work. But that was definitely something that shocked me, because I just never really saw something like that coming. It's like, this is something you already paid for, and a lot of times you were the only producer of too. So there's
Hmm.
very little cooks in the kitchen with the finances, and yet this is still what you decided to do. Like I said, the economics are changing, but yeah. Any like, I guess, more interesting surprises come to mind for you, man? The creative side of things. I don't know. Like I said, I think just the litany of blockbusters this year, and I didn't even mention like Obi-Wan or Westworld. Like, there was so much big stuff. But I mean, what stood out to you beyond the really overwhelming glut of shows in the spring?
Yeah, I think what stood out for me was just, I think this maybe is more for my viewing habits, just how much I ended up consuming HBO and like these main ones, and not getting to some of these like smaller hits. Like I didn't feel like a lot of shows like came out of nowhere this year to really grab me. And that might just be that because of the amount of shows we really had to pick and choose, and the ones that kind of pop up, by the time that we could get around to them, it didn't make sense to watch to talk about. um but even things like Rami on FX just kind of dropped, right? Like there was very little fanfare around a show that's gotten a ton of acclaim in the past, and it's like there's just so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels almost like, I don't want to say unsustainable, because it's there's viewers out there. They keep making these shows. A show like Wednesday comes to mind, which kind of just dropped here at the end of the year, and people are just loving the experience of it. But
And
it's like,
take that
man,
a
how do
step
you keep up
further.
with it all?
This is like, what, less than 2 months after Dahmer came out on Netflix
Hmm.
as well. These are two of the biggest series launches in the history of Netflix, and they both just happened. And these are happening in the same year where Rami seems to come and go. Gaslit on Stars, a
Hmm.
Julia Roberts, Sean Penn Watergate show, gets no oxygen at all. And then somehow a Adams Family redux with Jenna Ortega completely captures and defines the zeitgeist. It's like you never quite know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's just so hard to keep up with everything. I think the other like positive surprise for me in a lot of ways is the fact that we have a show that feels like it's moving into the Office, Parks and Rec territory with Abbott Elementary, which is really exciting to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, like it's going to be Abbott Elementary will be an Emmys darling moving forward. The
Yep, I've already seen
showrunner
that.
creator, who I whose name
Quinta
I'm
Brunson.
yes, Kinta Brunson, thank you, is just like primed to be a creator that's in the zeitgeist for the foreseeable future. But just having a show like that is something that will be a talking point for many people moving forward. And I say that as people that consume probably more TV than the average person. Abbott Elementary is something that will be shared among more people in my life than typical, which would be fun to talk about, and definitely a show over the winter break that I want to catch up on. I started watching a little bit back in March, actually, right before my wedding. Didn't have a chance to stick with it, but it's a show that's on my radar for sure. But I'm just excited about that. I'm excited about the breadth. I can't say that word very well, of stories that are being told. Looking through my list, there's some typical stories on here, but more diverse stories. To spoil a little bit, like Pachinko is in my top 10 and was one of my favorite stories to follow this year. And it's not a story that I feel like I've typically gotten to see told on TV in the way that it was told, with the production value that it was told. So seeing just more interesting stories, having a Star Wars story that felt different and adult. It's like TV continues to evolve and surprise, and continues to be a fun medium to talk about and consume. So maybe it's time to jump into the list. What do you think?
Yeah, let's get it, man. A lot of
So let's start.
a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Let's start with me. At my number 10, show that just a mainstay now in my top 10 every year. The funniest show on television, I think we both would agree, What We Do in the Shadows, season 4. Baby Colin, boy, just it's great to have the group back together. And in a lot of ways, What We Do in the Shadows is kind of just falling into that year over year, kind of the same thing. There's no like real forward progress in the story. And that was actually something after season 3 we were excited about. Like, where's the show gonna go now? Naja's over in the UK. Nandor is traveling the world. Like, they're all kind of separated. How do
Colin
they?
is dead.
Yeah, Colin is dead. Now there's a baby that crawled out of his chest. Like, how do we make sense of all this? What's the show gonna look like? And they just brought everybody back together, and the show is still a fucking hit. And Matt Berry, Kayvon Novak, Natasha Demetrio, and Harvey
Ian.
Guillen
Yep.
are just like one of the best like foursome combinations on television. They're absolutely hilarious. Whether it's trying to get baby Colin, who's aging rapidly, into this like private school and using their hypnotism too much on the principal of the school, where they hypnotize him like 1,000 times or something like that, or something ridiculous.
Give him a
Um,
fucking stroke.
or like the wedding episode where Nandor is marrying his former wife, one of his many former
Yep.
spouses, or even just all the stuff with the Jin. Like having
Yeah, he was great.
the wishes all season, just absolutely hilarious. And of course, Matthew Barry, just sometimes that guy, the way he just reads lines is just fun to listen to. So,
Oh yeah.
oh, and also all the nightclub stuff with Nadia. Like, how could you not
hmm
just love this show? It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's just like the ultimate hang on TV
Yeah.
right now. You love all these people, and the show is just so funny in terms of like laugh out loud, laughs per minute type stuff. It's just so witty. It's just a great time, and FX and this creative team, they just really hit their stride with this, and they just keep making this show. It's been renewed for several more seasons already. Just a blast. Yeah, it's honorable mention for me.
Well, Dave, I see your number 10 is The White Lotus. So talk to us about why that's your number 10.
Yeah, The White Lotus season 2, number 10 for me. We literally just talked about this show, just wrapped up on HBO. So, and all these shows we did review, so check those out for our extended thoughts, youtube.com/nostalgia pod. But yeah, White Lotus season 2, I think there was a lot of excitement about this show returning, a show that on its face didn't necessarily need to come back. Felt very fulfilling in its one season, but when you're an Emmy darling, when your ratings hit, somehow miniseries can become anthology series pretty quickly, and thus that's what we got. And ultimately, I was just quite impressed with how Mike White was able to kind of tweak and subvert the commentary and themes that we came to expect from season one and give you a slightly different spin on the thing he likes to point out with his shows via his characters. And season one was super tight, super satisfying, had a bunch of great performances. And season two, like again, just kind of went in a slightly different direction, but still had this really compelling ensemble cast, really carried by Jennifer Coolidge, who really levels up in season two, as well as Aubrey Plaza just being amazing in a bigger role, more forward facing, ratings role, which is awesome. And yeah, it's also a travel show now too. Just great to be hanging out in Sicily. So in short, White Lotus season two found a way to, I think, really stick the landing without just running back exactly what happened in season one. So I found it satisfying for many reasons. Again, check our review we just did.
Yeah, the ability to start the season off with these bodies being found, knowing that there's probably some impending doom coming about for some of the characters or something going on, and not having that even really be like the driving compelling aspect of the show is just such a testament to um, the ability of the show to create these storylines, these characters, these themes that really just suck you in from week to week. And you have these big name stars, uh, like you mentioned, Jennifer Coolidge, Imperioli, Aubrey Plaza. But then you get someone like Megan Fahey who comes in and is just like a complete revelation, and going toe to toe with them, and kind of leaves as like this blows you away. Or the actress who played Lucia on the season, another actress that just completely, I think, blew everybody away. And it's like the show just hums on all cylinders. Mike White, maybe the best writer of dialogue on TV right now. So really, definitely really interesting show. And one of my honorable mentions almost cracked my top 10, but it did not. We're going to move on to my number 9, though. Barry, season 3. Did this make your list, Dave?
It did not. It came out number 20 for me. Didn't quite connect with it as much as I wanted to, but still a lot of impressive craft and acting and fulfilling arcs in Barry season 3. But why did it make your list?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized it well. It's been 3 years since we got Barry, second season of Barry, and the show just continues to um, surprise and impress me. It starts off as this completely like unique show about this um, hitman who's trying to find connection and kind of balance these two aspects of his life, also dealing with trauma. And I think season 3, the reason it was so the reason I felt like it deserved to be on a list like this is because you kind of see the walls closing in around Barry, not only psychologically, but in real life, these people who are figuring out more and more who he actually is and what's going on. And it's still able to be this show where you enjoy being with the characters, even if you don't necessarily like the characters. You get these amazing moments, whether it's Sally like freaking out on people, or Barry yelling at her, or like the scene of them following each other around the TV set, is it kind of like shows them moving all throughout it, all these aspects, and just seeing like all of these characters like kind of fall apart in so many ways, and still have it be a show that I just I had to watch it when it came out every week. I had to be there to watch, to consume it as quickly as possible. Just really compelling. And Hader, I think, is an underrated performer. He doesn't do a lot of acting at this point beyond Barry. I think he's a little bit more involved on writing and producing side of things, but I think he gives a great performance. Um, Kusino, played by obviously the legendary boy, now I'm forgetting his name, Henry Winkler. Sorry, I was just thinking about him yesterday as well. But played by Henry Winkler, I think has maybe the most like satisfying and funny arc of this season, where he's kind of like forced by Barry to like pursue acting, which he's kind of like been resigned to do, and ends up just kind of like falling forward into these like hit shows and these hit ideas. And it's just really funny to see him like reluctantly like have all this success. um and Stephen Root kind of gets this like interesting arc where he's like trying to get revenge on Barry, and like choosing between, does he pursue happiness in Mexico, or go back to like fuck Barry over. And just like surprising at week to week. And that's not even talking about NoHo Hank, who I think might have had the most like emotional moment of the season, where he's finally finding some peace with his lover, and gets ripped away from him for people who are hateful towards people who are gay. And the inability to accept that. And you get some awesome set pieces, awesome emotional moments. Nothing like Barry on TV. It deserves to be in a top 10. All right, so Barry was my number 9. Dave, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Euphoria season 2, HBO. Beginning of the year show. The biggest show of the beginning of the year for sure. Massive ratings hit for HBO. Massive zeitgeist show, right? I think across generations, across ages, it seems to really connect with a lot of people, especially young people. But Euphoria really like leveled up this year with season 2. I think the filmmaking side of things immediately stands out. Incredibly impressive. Whether it's the visuals, whether it's the prescient soundtrack, whether it's, I think, the more intriguing things towards the end of the season, where the form of the season is a bit more abstract, specifically with Maud Apatow's character Lexi, her play
Mhm.
presenting the characters with kind of a recap of their lives on the show, but also doubling as a comment acknowledgement of what people say about the series Euphoria in real life, what people say about Sam Levinson. This is something he has done before in Malcolm and Marie. So it's, on one hand, I think meta interesting that he continues to be this kind of voice. But overall, I was quite impressed with the filmmaking. Um, and then, of course, people know there's just this litany of really amazing, talented young actors on this show. People know Zendaya, two-time Emmy winner for this series already. Not that it's the most fun to stick with Rue when she's going through it and at her lowest, but it's an amazing performance. And then I think it was a really strong season for Sydney Sweeney, who definitely had a lot more to do as Cassie this time around. Uh, Jacob Elordi still does the things he does. He's really hard to look away from. And of course, really impressive newcomer performances from Minka Kelly as well as Dominic Fike, most unexpectedly of all.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, even someone who probably doesn't get as much to do as I'd like in season two, like Alexa Demi. I mean, Maddie still has like one of the best memes, one of the best lines of the show. The "bitch, you better be joking." It's still perfect, perfect line reading, you know. So I think just week to week, Euphoria was a really fun thing to be with, and a big part of that too, I think, was more stuff to do for Angus Cloud's Fez as well, which was a fan favorite in season one. They really doubled down on Fez in season two, I think, to great effect. So overall, I really loved just about everything with season two of Euphoria.
Yeah, Euphoria came in at number 7 for me. And I think you laid out all the reasons really well. Just Sam Levinson's ability to give something compelling and unpredictable week to week. The format of the episodes, while having like the cold opens, obviously was a bit of a running through line from season one. You never really knew what to expect. Whether it's stand still like a hummingbird, where you get Zendaya having this withdrawal rage episode that's basically like a chase episode by the end of it, or you get the final episode like you mentioned, where you have the play format, but then you also have like the shootout with Fez and his brother,
Ashtray.
um Ashtray, RIP. And just seeing the way that all the characters who get some time to vent a little bit, like Jacob Elordi, his character Nate, even though still pretty despicable with everything with Cal and the build out of Cal's flashback that you get in this episode, you start to understand him more, and I think empathize a little bit more, even though he's still a very toxic person. The only like drawback of the show would be that there's just too many good people on this, and too many compelling characters that don't get enough time. And obviously, there's been some behind the scenes drama with Levinson and some of the actors, notably Barbie Ferrara, who I believe is not
Yep,
coming back for the next season. So
correct. Yeah.
some some drawbacks there, but this is one of the most compelling shows on TV. And if you're not watching it and you like stylistic shows, you like character, you like just hanging in an unrealistic high school world, this is
Yeah.
it.
It's so much more than teen drama, you know. It's really something. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So not sure when it'll be back just yet. Obviously everyone in the show is quite busy with their careers, but when it is back, we know it'll be huge and I'm sure it'll be great.
So that was Dave's number 9, my number 7, Euphoria. Let's move on to my number 8, which is Pachinko. Dave, did this come in on your list at all?
Oh yeah, man. Pachinko, number 4 for me. Apple TV
Top 5.
Plus pulling up.
Well, Dave, then I'm gonna give you the floor. Tell me what about Pachinko made this a top 5 show for you this year.
Yeah, and like we've been saying, really impressive, really strong, really top heavy year with TV in 2022. So you can make a case for a lot of shows at the top, but I really did not want to ding Pachinko too much just because I was so impressed with this show. And I think this is a show that people who knew about it were really interested, intrigued in as a high profile, high budget adaptation of a well known novel. But the execution of Pachinko just really blew me away. I think it's probably like the overall, like the grandest filmmaking on TV we got in
Mm.
2022. Just the ability of this series to tell this multi-layered, multi-timeline, past, present form of storytelling in several incredibly realized worlds, whether we're in the past in Korea, whether in modern day Japan, wherever it is, everything feels so real, so alive because the production design is just absolutely impeccable, absolutely at like full, filmmaking might. And on top of that, when you have characters across timelines, their young self, their present self, their old self, whatever it is, the writing on this show is so strong that the characterization of these characters is just so rich, and you're so invested with these characters, and you really get to know them and understand their journey, and it lends to multiple great performances for the same character in the one series, which obviously is no small feat. And obviously, I think the big highlight of this show, if you had to pick one thing out, would be the episode 7 flashback episode where we experience the Kanto earthquake in all its terror.
Mm.
That was probably the most like mind blowing thing you saw. But I think by and large, just about every like storyline, every plot on this show really came together by the end and felt incredibly satisfying. Just because in the richness of all these plots just was like, really paid off by the end. So overall, I was just really impressed with, I think, how well like the grandness of Pachinko was executed on, and I really can't wait for season 2, which we expect in 2024.
Yeah, that episode 7, the Great Cantu earthquake episode, is just one of the most singular episodes of television of this year, and I think it has to be in any place at least top 5 episodes, if not like top 3, probably for me. And you get so many great performances throughout this, right? I mean, Kim Soon Ha is played by 3 different actors, depending on which part of the timeline that you're in. But you have Yu Jung playing
Yep.
her in as the older version, but then Min Ha is just like
Mhm.
amazing, carrying such a emotional weight, but like internal strength throughout her story arc, and it really comes across, especially as you see her like meeting her brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and like building a life in Japan at that time. It's just really amazing. um and I think back to like some of the moments that stood out to me most. There's that scene in Modern Time where the grandson of
Solomon.
Kim Han, yeah, Solomon is at the table with his company, trying to get the older lady to sell her home, and she just is unwilling to, and like that like tension, and like her drawing on her own history to remind him of his history, and like tying that into the themes of the show. It's just such a powerful and like poignant moment that it's hard to like pick out a moment of the show that like I think defines what the show is about better. These two generations facing each
Yeah.
other, but being forced to like recognize like how they influence each other. It's just really, really well done.
Don't know the difference between the rice, you dumb idiots. But I think
Yeah.
also like this show really communicates incredibly well to non Korean, non Japanese speakers due to, I think, really impressive intentionality with the way its subtitles are
Mhm.
presented to us, where they're color coded depending on
Yes.
which language it is, down to the individual word. That way, when a character switches up what language they are using in that context, the gravity of that choice and the meaning of that between the characters is communicated to someone who doesn't know the language. And like it's just a specific thing that you don't encounter very often, but it just flows right into just the storytelling, thoughtfulness that Pachinko has. So, yeah, it's gonna be a long wait. They're just starting production on season 1, at the beginning of next year, but really looking forward to seeing what's next. Just because I thought this really was, they really nailed it. You know,
Well, Pachinko is my number 8, Dave's number 4. Let's keep it moving. So, Dave, what was your number 8 show of the year?
number 8 for me, HBO. Happy Wayne Jenkins Day, motherfucker. We own the city. Absolute blast. We knew we were probably going to like it. David Simon, George Pelicanos, HBO, starring John Bernthal. Sounds pretty good. Turns out it was an absolute blast. Another journey into the story of institutional rot and the failures of bureaucracy and, of course, police corruption as well. That you expect from Simon's storytelling. And it just really lands. And obviously, you have this fireball, whirlwind central performance from John Bernthal as Wayne Jenkins. But even the more understated supporting characters are all really effective in it. Even as you watch the plot go in a direction you probably expect, it just leaves you feeling absolutely terrible because these themes are just really present and not uplifting and stuck in the mud and all that. Just it obviously stinks. And yeah, great show. Pretty economical at only 6 episodes. Really stood out for me in that really busy spring we just had.
Yeah, so We Own the City was my number 6 episode of the year. Just like you said, absolutely amazing telling of the police corruption of the gun trace task force, obviously anchored by the Bernthal performance as Wayne Jenkins. But man, there's so many performances in this that are worth like noting. Jamie Hector is Sean Salter, probably the most tragic figure in this whole story, is just kind of this like emotional like barometer throughout the show. You have Wonmi Musaku as Nicole Steele, who I think really is this like very like straight laced and like just like avatar of the absolute like disgust that a lot of people felt towards this. But having all these different layers of the story kind of weave together so seamlessly is something that obviously we know Simon and Pelicanos can do from their past shows, but you see someone like Delaney Williams as the police commissioner, Kevin Davis, just kind of like uh, giving this like performance of like cover your ass, but also kind of like turning a blind eye to a lot of it. It's really just impressive how they did it all, and can't say enough about this team's ability to tell stories on so many levels. And we didn't even mention like you get an amazing like episode where you get Bernthal as Wayne Jenkins after the Freddie Gray riots and everything. It's just really impressive.
Yeah, totally. I think it's something that probably deserves more eyeballs than it ended up getting, given it came out in a busy time. But yeah, unsurprisingly, Simon Pelicanos know what they're doing. It was another banger from them.
So Dave, so far we've done our 10, 9, and 8. Is that correct? My number 7 is Euphoria, which was your
My
number
number 9.
9. So
Yeah,
I think we're on to your number 7.
my number 7 is Atlanta FX.
My number 2 of the year.
Yeah, and I think you can make a case for Atlanta being really anywhere in the top 10. We got season 3 and season 4 this year after the series was away for over 4 years. Long wait. Then it comes back, and now it's gone forever. Fourth season, final season. And yet, I think season 3, a lot of talk at the time, more up and down, more anthology, I guess you could say. You know, the main cast is only in like half the series. It is quite stark, quite noticeable. And of course, we're in a new place, we're in Europe, but still some things to enjoy about that season. But then when you get season 4, go back to Atlanta, really stick with the core cast more or less. And man, it's just a really, I think, effective way to end a landmark series where you have this finale that doesn't give you that expected like plot closure and plot convenience, and yet it still finds a way to make you feel good and be happy about these characters and be happy about this journey and miss the show. And another series of just banger Atlanta episodes, classic banger Atlanta stuff happens in season 4. So yeah, sucks to see it's gone, but this hugely successful cast and creative team we know will give us more soon.
Yeah, it's my number 2 show of the year because even though season 3 is more up and down, I still give them so much credit for kind of taking the swings that they did in that season. You know, Atlanta has always been about more than just kind of following these characters around. They're trying to say something about the Black experience in America, and you know whether it's an episode like the Big Paycheck, where you know the reparations are being paid from white people to uh, to black people whose ancestors were enslaved by their ancestors, and just the whole like dynamic of that is really good. You get the episode where like Liam Neeson makes a cameo, which is just absolutely like ridiculous, but also like the fact that he's actually like acknowledging this like moment he
Oh
had
yeah,
is just like mind blowing to me. And the episodes that you do get with the characters in that season, whether it's Ern going to therapy or something like that, is just really tantalizing and exciting. But then season 4, I mean, like you said, this could be the best episode of maybe one of the best shows of our lifetimes at this point. And there's so many good episodes and good moments. What would you say is your favorite episode of this season, season
yeah.
4?
I think it's hard to say because there's so many great ones, but what's it? Crankdack Killer, Snipe
Yeah.
Hunt. Really, the whole back half I really loved.
Yep.
The Goof Who Sat by the Door was an amazing like one-off
Yep.
concept and executed on so well. The finale, of course, is really great. Yeah, there's just so much like classic Atlanta isms
Hmm.
in this season, but like the character work and the acting work is like the best it's ever been, which really makes it feel like a fulfilling and satisfying journey for the series and natural ending.
Completely agree. And the series finale being so Atlanta, not being like, oh, I'm gonna give you that closure moment, but just like they're all just hanging out, they're all just doing their thing. Really, really amazing season overall. And man, there's nothing like it. Really gonna miss this show on our screens, but like you said, definitely more to come from these people. Let's keep it cruising though. What's next on your list?
Number 6 for me, Pat. What did I sacrifice?
Mm,
Peace.
man, I
Andor.
can't believe it's this low for you. I expected this to be top five for sure.
Yeah, you could make the case for sure. I certainly would be happy to, but I have it at 6 for me. Andor on Disney Plus, just an absolute miracle. I really can't believe it's as good as it is. It's as intelligent as it is. But then you think about it, it's like, oh, Tony Gilroy made this. Maybe it makes some sense. It's Star Wars for adults by adults, and I think just the economy of the writing and the execution of the plots and the production values, like it's just so sophisticated in a way you don't really get from mainstream blockbuster like franchise entertainment. Uh, Certainly with any regularity. And there's so many like notable moments between the prison heist with Andy Serkis or prison escape with Andy Serkis, the everything that happens with Luthen towards the end
Mhm.
there when he has his amazing thesis bearing speech on the bridge there in the depths of
Amazing
Coruscant.
moment.
So fucking good. Uh, Brief cameos with Saw Gerrera, very effective. Really coloring in all these supporting characters for you that you have not even a whole lot of time with, but like everything feels so richly characterized. And finding a way, I think, for you to care about a story that's set in a familiar time in the Star Wars timeline. There's nothing super surprising about it. It's just the high level of the execution that just really was beyond my wildest expectations.
Yeah, Tony Gilroy and his team had a specific idea of what they wanted to make, and they pretty much said like we're making it or we're walking away. And aside from a few, like I think actors that they had to take on based on their experience of playing other actors in the past, like Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, they really got to make the show that they wanted. And adult Star Wars show, yes, please. This is amazing. It's this three different arcs throughout the season, and or is it four different arcs throughout the season? Four, I think.
Yeah, was it 4 3 episode arcs?
Yes, and just amazing to see them touch on so many different aspects of this world. They built beautiful concepts, whether it's the jail where they electrocute you from the
Yep.
floor, like
Hmm.
amazing idea. Also like amazing prison break episode, and just that
Oh yeah,
whole arc. Andy Circus just absolutely kills it.
can't swim.
um I, I love the all the stuff with Mon Mothma, and like how far is she willing to go to continue like sacrificing and continuing to work towards this ultimate good. And it really doesn't make you feel like great about a lot of these characters. A lot of them are morally great right from the beginning. Cassian kills two people that he probably didn't actually have to murk, but he does. And
Yep.
it just kind of makes you realize that in order to actually achieve the rebellion, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to do some of these things. You get amazing monologues, like you mentioned, from Stellan Skarsgård, Fiona Shaw, and just amazing one lines, like like Cassian's final line in
Yep.
the show, like either kill me or take me with you. Amazing, just like so simple,
Yep.
so
Perfect.
moving. Can't wait for season two. Probably gonna destroy us, right?
Oh, I think so. We're gonna lose some people, but that's I think what speaks to the characterization, the strength of the writing with this, that you're so invested with this array of characters, this array of ensemble already. So yeah, I really can't wait for that in 2 years. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, Dave, we've gotten through each of our top six. We're into our top fives now. And my top five, I mentioned at the beginning of the show how there were very few shows this year that really just like jumped out and surprised us and really like grabbed the zeitgeist. But the bear is one that completely did this, and one of the most, I think, surprising and fun and just overall a satisfying experience that I had watching television was sitting with this short 8 episode arc with Carm and all of the crew here at the Italian beef shop down in Chicago. Where did this fall on your list?
Number 5 for me as well. I think that's
Ah,
exactly right. Just one of the really few out of nowhere surprises. Hats off to FX for this one. Really snuck up on us, and I think was another really rich, layered, engaging 30-minute series.
yeah, and I think you get a couple of really strong performances from Jeremy Allen White, obviously, but a couple of other ones from other people in the crew, and
Mhm.
obviously a great Bernthal a cameo. Who are the characters that you liked the most this season?
Well, I thought Eben Moss Baccarat and
Right.
Io Debris, those two, along with Jeremy Allen White, those three performances really all sync up and I think really make the Bears shine as a series and like their relationships and the ups and downs and like the fact that like it's a show that's it's not really about like is this restaurant gonna succeed. It's about these actual people and what they're going
Mhm.
through in their lives through the frame of they all work at this small restaurant and like man, I think it all really sings and Evan Moss Baccarat gets to really ball out as the cousin that wasn't. So uh, I think a big part of it is that the show came out of nowhere. But honestly, like I have a lot of faith that season two will be will be good, even though we'll have higher expectations this time around.
Yeah, man. I have a lot of expectations for this, and I gotta say, like, I didn't feel more stressed out watching television than I did the episode where the penultimate episode review, where it's just this one shot where it's just these orders coming in from the internet over and over, and everybody just starts freaking out more and more, and it is just incredibly made and can't recommend it enough. A short show to catch up on if you're looking for something a
Mm,
little bit more lighthearted. And also, like, shout out Hiro Murai, who we've now talked about twice, and I think his collaboration with FX as a producer and creator is
yeah,
uh,
actually, didn't he also
noteworthy.
do Barry too?
Oh, you know what? You're
Summer
right.
Barry,
Third
yeah,
time.
3 times this year. What what
That's
what a year
killing
for
it.
Hero.
What a year for Hero. Um, so, Dave, my number four was Andor. What's your number four?
My number 4 was Pachinko.
All right, so we're on to our top three of the year. My number three from this year, uh, technically, technically from this year,
Mm.
Station 11. And man, uh, what a fucking delight this show was, huh?
Yeah, totally. I think another show that kind of snuck up on us came out, basically half and half between the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022. So don't forget about it though, because I feel like another show that could use more eyes because, yeah, the obvious comparison would be The Leftovers. It's a show from Patrick Somerville. Makes sense. There's some DNA there, but just what Station 11 cares about and prioritizes in storytelling is both really admirable but also really hard to pull off. But that's what Station 11 does. It's a show that on its face could just be about this apocalypse, this global pandemic that wipes out 90% of the world. And we're just going to hang out with those survivors. But like it's not actually about like the sci-fi elements of the world building. It's really just about these characters and these very small, very specific personal journeys these people are going on because the writing is so strong, performances match that. I think it really starts to shine and fly by the end, and it has a very satisfying conclusion. Just a really miraculous mini series that, for a year that was so loaded with contenders for the top of a top 10 list, I think Station 11 really stuck with me from the beginning of the year, and that's why I have it so high at number 3.
Yeah, it's just an amazing emotional story, and you get such great performances from a great child performance from Matilda Lawler as
Hmm.
young Kirsten, and the way her and Himesh Patel as Jeevan interact, and he reluctantly becomes her caretaker, during the apocalypse is just so wonderful to watch, and especially his relationship with his brother Frank. and their kind of like dynamic as they're navigating what this world is like now. Th- so many moments from these episodes that stand out. Whether it's the one where David Wilmots Clark kind of like becomes the leader of this airport where people have basically like quarantined as a result of not being able to get on flights while the pandemic is just taking people out very quickly. Even the first episode where you have Arthur die on stage, and that kind of like propels Jeevan to walk Kirsten back to his apartment and navigate all these like things as the world's starting to end. Just like a truly memorable and emotional show that I think is surprising and never really is as straightforward as you think it's going to be, and leaves you just with so many thoughts, and I think speaks to the times now, obviously living through the COVID-19 pandemic. It just had so many lessons about and thoughts on connection and what it means to kind of live through something like this. Can't recommend it enough, and hopefully it's a show people continue to find, because it's uh it's truly I think any other year could have been our number ones. Um Dave, my number 2 was Atlanta. And so I'm wondering what's your number 2 for this year?
My number 2 is Industry, HBO
Ah,
slash BBC.
nice
This didn't
choice.
make I'm surprised this didn't make your list. You really like this one too.
I did really like this one.
Tough
My
here.
number 10 spot was very very tough to decide, and I ultimately
Yep.
went with Shadows, but having a little bit of regret even as we're doing this list.
Yeah, no, I mean, like we said, there's a very, very compelling top 15, top 20 in
Mhm.
2022. It was that good. But yeah, for me, Industry, I just found it so satisfying, so fun, so stressful, so all the things. It really made me feel all the things, and I was so happy that the show really seemed to take a step forward, take a creative leap with season two. After season one was one of those big surprises 2 years ago in terms of coming out of nowhere and finding a way to compel people with the world of high finance, a world that's very abstract and unusual to the average person, but by, you know, in a sense, combining Succession and Euphoria, to be blunt, it I think finds a way to really compel. Being set in England, obviously, I think is a big help in terms of just kind of spicing up what's going on. you know,
Yep.
whether it's hearing English slang or just the stuff they do over there. Nice touch for me. But Jay Duplass's introduction in season two as a new character, Bloom, this big time investor guy, uh, really important energy. I think really effective engine of a lot of the narrative threads this season, and his relationship with Harper is, I think, really central to why season two works so well. Myala Harold, really great once again as Harper.
Mhm.
Marissa Bella, though, I think really shines, probably steals the season as Yaz this year, as Yaz starts
Yeah.
to take like a different path in her career at the firm. You get more Rishi this year, and his one-liners, his line readings are just so awesome, so funny. All that stuff, right? As
Mhm.
the big swinging dick on the desk, basically. And then Eric as well. I think the journey Eric goes on as someone who's perhaps being put out to pasture in terms of the finance world, and then he realizes he actually does have a move left to play, a chess piece to assign, and how that affects Harper, I think, is really shocking, but also incredibly effective, right? And also, like, it gives you drugs, it gives you sex, it gives you a lot of
Everything.
stuff. I really think it's an absolute blast, and like I think the best example of the show though is like the fact that you're able to watch Harper execute this really in the weeds like trade with millions and millions of dollars while all the characters around her at work are watching her do it. The fact that that's ratcheted up to 11, the tension is so high and you're so stressed about what's happening and whether Harper is going to win or completely lose. The fact that you don't need to know the detail of that financial information, I think, just speaks to how well they communicate their themes with this show. And that's why it's actually so broadly appealing. So, yeah, big fan of Industry. Really can't wait for it to come back.
Yeah, I probably should have made my list in retrospect. It's hard to fit everything into these lists that I want to talk about, but man, there are so many amazing moments. I think Yaz's storyline probably was my favorite, but also like some of the stuff with Harper and her brother, and
Yes.
kind of that
Yep.
that dynamic playing out with her relationship with Eric, and then with Bloom, just really interesting. And you got to love all the stuff just on the floor, right? When they're trying to like cut these deals
It's
quickly,
the
and
best.
you don't understand a lot of even what they're saying a lot of the time, or like what numbers they're throwing out, but you just feel the tension, and it's so well made. It's really impressive. So a
Right.
worthy choice I'm surprised it's that high, especially given the fact I know you're like the Star Wars guy for the pod, and I just know how much you loved Andor. But man, definitely worthy. But I think that means, Dave, that we have the same number one. If I had to guess,
Was there any doubt about the
Better
best
Call
show
Saul.
of the year? Better Call Saul, season 6, final season?
Isn't this
No,
one of
there
those?
was no doubt.
This is one of those like premiere shows though that has always kind of been like overlooked in a
Yeah.
sense. Like it's
It's never
amazing
been my
and
number one before. So, yeah, it has been overlooked in a sense.
yeah, and it has never like been awarded the way that it probably should have at things. I mean, Rhea Seehorn was just finally nominated for her performance
Absurd.
as Kim, um, but this season split up into two distinct parts. But this final season, season six, I think gives each character a satisfying goodbye. And to wrap up this way while also pulling in aspects of Breaking Bad and making it all feel so earned and satisfying, a complete masterpiece from Gilligan and team. I mean, what else
Mhm.
is there to say?
No, I think that's exactly right. And like, there was so much theorizing that everyone did, we did as well, about what's going to happen to Jimmy, what's going to happen to Kim, what's going to happen to Lalo and everyone else. And of course, no one guessed it right. But the fact that what we did get, not only did it surprise in a certain sense, but it was so satisfying, so emotionally resonant. And I think just the journey that we went on with Saul, from the humble beginnings of the Breaking Bad spin-off prequel being about Saul Goodman of all people, the journey we ended up going on with this show is just so satisfying. And we know how good
Mhm.
the filmmaking's been. We know how great the writing has been, but I think season 6 more than anything was about just how effective the plotting was and the payoff was. It was, the journey felt super real and super earned, with these moments. Everything with Kim and Jimmy at the end, where Jimmy making the decision he makes to basically save Kim, like all the way all that works. And of course the lead up to all this stuff too, when everything that happens with Howard becomes so tragic after he was a character you
Mhm.
hated for so many seasons earlier in the run of Better Call Saul. There's just so much about the show I love. And of course, Tony Dalton,
Oh yeah.
this wasn't the best Tony Dalton season, but Tony Dalton in the back half of Saul, just one of the great TV villains of recent times. There's been so much with this show, and it just ended in such a perfect grace note for Saul and Breaking Bad as well.
Can't agree more. And this show has given us so many like great moments and uh, episodes to kind of go back to and point to. Um, and I just really love that in the end they brought it back to the fight for the soul of Jimmy McGill. Is he gonna totally go to Saul? Is he gonna kind of just fall into nothingness as Gene Tekovich? And he ended up being Jimmy and giving him this moment to uh, basically go out on his terms and accept responsibility in front of Kim as like a mea culpa, and kind of have them end with the finger guns just felt so poetic. You get some more moments with Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston.
Oh yeah,
Some flashbacks to Breaking Bad moments, and they don't feel like fan servicey, even though I think it would have been very easy to say that they felt earned and they felt like they added to what they were trying to say about the characters and the
yeah.
Saul story. Um, yeah, really impressed. And man, I mean, we barely even like have touched on like Jonathan Banks as Mike and his arc throughout the season. Gus, you know, gets a moment where you get some humanity from him, and it's just really impressive how they pulled this all together. And not even to mention, you get Carol Burnett playing a critical role
Oh yeah.
in bringing Jimmy down. So the poetic full circle of an older person kind of being the one to bring Saul Goodman down after he made his name off the Sandpiper case. Just
Yeah, amazing, huh?
really so well done. So
Right. And lastly, just the fact that Better Call Saul, there is now an argument that you could easily justify that you prefer this series to Breaking Bad, something that would have been so inconceivable not too long ago. The
yeah,
fact that it's actually an argument now just speaks to how great Saul is on its own. It's of course it's not a standalone thing, but like it was that satisfying and I think that effective, and just like the 15-year journey of Breaking Bad and Saul has been just a true delight. So yeah, what a way for it to end. It was so great. I really can't believe how great of a send off it ended up being.
Completely agree. Why don't we recap our 10 through ones and then we'll talk about some honorable mentions. I'll go first. My number 10 is What We Do in the Shadows. My number 9, Barry. 8, Pachinko. 7, Euphoria. 6, We Own the City. 5, The Bear. 4, Andor. 3, Station 11. 2, Atlanta. And 1, Better Call Saul. Dave, what's yours?
Yep, number 10, The White Lotus. Number 9, Euphoria. Number 8, We Own the City. Number 7, Atlanta. Number 6, Andor. Number 5, The Bear. Number 4, Pachinko. Number 3, Station 11. Number 2, Industry. And number 1, Better Call Saul. A great year, a stacked year, and that's why our honorable mentions are also quite compelling as well.
Yeah, and for me, the first one I wanted to mention was the rehearsal from Nathan Fielder. Outside of What We Do in the Shadows, probably the funniest show I watched this year. And even though the final episode left me with some mixed thoughts and feelings about it, I think overall it's a very singular show, and I really give it so much credit for being so unique and thought provoking, and just really like impressive that they went to like such scale to kind of pull off this experiment. A couple others I want to shout out. House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings of Power. As I mentioned at the top, probably my two most anticipated shows for this year. Did not make my top 10, but were very close week to week. Felt like I had to keep up with them, and uh, very satisfying shows. Did they come close to your list?
They did. I had House of the Dragon number 11, just missed. Still really liked it quite a bit. I also have a lot of time for Winning Time. Happy to get
Yeah.
season 2 next year. That'll be great. The Dropout, I think, is easily the best of the uh, real life, dramatization series we got this year. Also, Tokyo Vice, a bit under remarked upon. I
Yes.
still quite liked it. The Boys season 3 for All Mankind, as well as shows you mentioned, What We Do in the Shadows and Barry, and shout out Hacks as well. Really, really great
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Really, really deep TV year. I don't know if next year will be as deep, but maybe they'll give us some time for some surprises. We'll see.
I
Um,
agree.
Overall, if let us know what you think were the best shows of this year. Hit us up at Nostalgia Pod on Twitter. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. We'll catch you in 2023.